Welcome everyone, no mai, haere mai, kia koutou, to this first International Ignite Your Leadership Summit. This is an international online event for youth and teachers to unlock potential, value all people and find hope for the future. Through this international summit, we're hoping to listen to the voices of youth, listen to the voices of teachers, and listen to the voices of leaders within Aotearoa and across the world. It's great to have you with us today. I'd like to start this summit with the following karakia, which is whakataka te hau. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu. Tihei mauri ora. Cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breezes flow over the land. Let the breezes blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened air, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day. 'Tis the breath of life. I love this karakia because it's talking about the breezes blowing over the land and creating the opportunity for new learning and new growth. The opportunity for change is now. It's a great time to be able to think about what's happening currently and to be able to think about a new future. So who am I? Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. Ko Sir George Seymour me Randolph ngā waka. Ko Fuji me Rimutaka ngā maunga. Ko te awa kairangi te awa. Ko Ngāti Pākehā ahau, engari ko Aotearoa me hapana kāinga noho. Ko te awa kairangi e noho ana e nai nei. Ko Dara Giles, rawa ko Judy Gibb, o Kumātua. Ko John Shepherd, tōku hoatane. Ko Dara, rātou ko Matthew, ko Andrew, ko David, āku tamariki. Ko Kathy Shepherd, tōku ingoa. He whakatauki? He aha te mea nui o te ao. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So I'm Kathy, and my ancestors came to New Zealand, into Christchurch on two of the first 4 ships into there in 1850. I've had a very varied life. I've had ancestors come from lots of different countries around the world, and I myself was born in Japan. So I find myself living in 2 countries, Japan and New Zealand, and I feel very much at home in both of those places. Both of my parents were teachers. They were both secondary school teachers, and so I've been grounded in the education system right from when I was very, very little. I have 4 children, all boys, who I have watched go through the education system. They've attended school both in Japan and in New Zealand, and I've watched and been part of their journey as students within the education system and seeing the results of what's come out the other end. I am also a teacher myself. I have taught at secondary level, I've taught at early childhood level, and I'm now teaching teachers. So I've taught people from 0 to 80 in 5 different countries, and it's been a real privilege working with teachers, with youth, with people of all ages around the countries in the world. My brother also lives in Belgium, and he has experience of that education system, which he has shared with me as well. So we are at a real time where I'm questioning so much of what's going on in the education system. And that came to a head in April of this last year, 2 weeks into lockdown, when my youngest son, he was 18 years old at the time. This was his gap year. He was excited about being able to go off into the world after finishing his 13 years at school. And 2 weeks into lockdown, he stood there in the kitchen in my house and he said the following, which was, I feel like I have wasted 13 years of my life at school. Nothing that I learned there was useful for me now. The only thing that is useful for me now, Mum, is the stuff that you've taught me and the stuff that I've learned from the sports psychologists. He's an elite climber for New Zealand. And that started me thinking, because I too have seen many, many issues with the education system, and it's becoming more and more apparent with stress and with burnout and with more and more students saying that what they're being taught there is not relevant. And so I asked him about what was relevant, what is relevant, what has he been able to use? And so that has shaped part of the content of what we're bringing into today. So why is the Summit for Teachers and Youth? Education is co-creation. Education is not about filling a bucket, but it's about lighting a fire. Globally, so many people, teachers, youth, parents, are realizing that the current systems are not agile enough to respond to the changes as they're happening. The teachers are stuck, the students are stuck. And that's what this is about. It's about each and every individual learning more about themselves and what they can do to make a difference now. So what's the format of the summit? How's it going to work? Well, we have 3 days. Each day, we're starting at 9 a.m. New Zealand time, and we've got an opening session. And then there are 20 speakers spread over the 3 days. Each of them are bringing in cool content around that theme of igniting your fire. Each of you will have received a playbook as well. It will have been emailed to you, or you can download a copy from this platform. Throughout the playbook, there's information about each of the speakers and what they're going to be talking about. And also there are places for you to reflect on the speakers as we're going. What I'd like to do now is to get you to listen to David and his thoughts about the education system. David, it's great to have you on Zoom today. And David is 19 years old and he's my son. Hi, David.
Hello.
It's great to have you here today. Now, you finished school last year with so many dreams. You'd had 13 years at school, and yet in April this year, you stood there in the kitchen and you were so frustrated. And what you said to me was you felt like you had wasted 13 years of your life at school and that nothing that you'd learnt at school was useful. Why did you say that? Why did you feel that?
Well, I thought most of school teaches you old things that isn't really useful for the real world anymore. And so when I came out of school, even though I had learned all the basic needs for finding a job and just carrying it out, I thought that the things that I needed now, I hadn't been taught at school, and that I had only learned them from outside of school with my sport and through you. The system at school is broken, really. It teaches you, as I said, the basic needs, but through 13 years, and most of that is just babysitting.
It seems really, really frustrating. When you're saying it's not useful, I know we've done a little bit of talking over the year about, what was useful, or and you've talked about the different subjects that you were learning. Mm-hmm. Tell us about some of that and what you've found this year as you've come out of school. You're thinking about the subjects that you've been taught and what you can do with them now. What's happened? What's you thinking now?
Well, sure, a lot of the subjects that I went through were fun and interesting to me at the time, but coming out of it, how many of those subjects am I actually going to follow through with, apart from one? And I think school is lacking in individuality and going, what do you actually want? What are you actually interested in? Or even teaching you how to find the things that you're interested in, not what can we offer to you. What can the teacher themselves are interested in and will pass on to the students.
And you've talked a little bit about the content of the exams and so on through school. It's like the content is set, and who's decided that, and is it still relevant? And there's those sorts of questions that you've had on the way through as well, aren't there?
Yeah, it's sort of like broken into 2 parts. From years 1 to 10, it's sort of like babysitting, the teacher exploring certain things, but still keeping to that frame that was thought of 100, 200 years ago, and then getting to year 11, 12, and 13 and going, okay, this is the set thing of exams. This is what we have to teach you now. And leaving school at the end of that, not needing any of it.
Mm. So it's the content of the exam system that is particularly really challenging in terms of it's how you use it or whether you can use it.
It depends on the person that if it's challenging or not. It's more if it's actually useful in the real world, not in academia, if you're going to go down that path.
And I think that's one of the things that you've really seen this year. You've been really questioning, isn't it? Is, okay, I'm out of school now. I've got this piece of paper, but how can I use what I've learned? And that's been one of the biggest frustrations. Is that right?
Yeah. It's either go do retail or things like that, or a trade, or go to academia. And what they haven't taught us is, what are you actually interested in? And instead of going to university, how can you apply that and get a job or support yourself without going through the norms?
Because it seems, from what you're saying about, go to retail or get a trade or go to university, it's almost like your options are going to make coffee or going and working in a shop or and then learning about what you can do rather than having had that opportunity to learn about that stuff in school.
Exactly, yeah.
At that same time that you said to me that this is so frustrating, I feel like I've wasted 13 years of my life in school, you also said to me that the only thing that is useful for me now, Mum, is the stuff that you've taught me and the stuff that you've learned from a sports psychologist. So tell me about what has been useful for you since you've come out of school. What is it that you wish you'd learned at school?
The things that I've found most useful is dealing with, I guess, the changing world and being able to apply what I've learned from you guys through the sports psychologist to cope with it, but also see the world for what it actually is, not what people tell us it is, of doom and gloom sort of thing.
So tell us about that, because that's really interesting. What is the world, to see it for it actually is? What do you see in that when you're describing that?
Well, it's adventure, we're only here for however long.
Yep.
And
we matter.
Yeah.
And what we do matters.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of just following down this path of what school teaches us or what school thinks we need.
And so for you, it's almost like finding out what you can do and being able to focus on that, finding out about yourself. Is that some of that stuff that's
finding out about yourself, because everyone's different, and how can it be so streamlined when everyone is so different?
And that's some of the stuff that you've talked about as well in terms of the narrowness, isn't it, with the subjects, and this is what you must learn, and yet so many people don't fit that because their interests are not in those things, and
they either drop out or are not interested in it, and so aren't achieving their full potential.
And then they can feel helpless and all of that sort of stuff. Another thing that's really that you've talked about a lot is that mindset stuff that you've learned about and how useful that's been. So tell us a little bit about mindset and what it's meant for you.
Well, mindset is very important. If I didn't have a lot of those tools to apply when times did get tough, I wouldn't know where I'd be.
So what are some of those tools that you have been able to apply? When we're talking about mindset, it's a big thing, isn't it? So yeah, just give us some examples of what you've used this year to be able to cope. Because a lot of it's from your rock climbing ability, isn't it? As you have to approach every single climb as a new climb.
Well, just the little things of getting out of bed straight away and planning your day, and even though it sounds a bit funny, just meditating too, 5 minutes a day, or writing down all your thoughts and of what you can achieve, what you want to achieve.
And how has that helped you?
Well, it's taken my mind off everything that's happening and putting my mind onto what I actually want from this year, even though everything's changed, and actually getting the most out of it instead of writing it off.
Yep. So taking that little bit of time each day helps you to refocus and to keep positive, and keep looking forwards rather than backwards or in the present.
Even though it sounds lame, it's very important.
It sounds really simple, doesn't it? And yet it's made such a difference, because I've watched you go through this year and deal with so many challenges and stay super positive through it all. As you've renegotiated your entire year and looking towards the future. So, yeah. So if we're looking at a question on that, because you asked about the system is broken. If you had a dream to be able to change the system, what could it look like, or what should be thought about in changing that system?
Well, I think the basic needs of being in a society, such as reading, writing, and communication, not just person to person, but through deeper things as writing, is important. But that only takes, not very long to learn, especially at a young age. And then building from that, what do each individual person want to learn? And I know that might be hard to carry out, but if you frame it as each kid gets a question of what they want to learn, what they are interested in, and then the teacher sort of helping them frame that into, okay, do some research, carry it out, how do you actually apply that?
So it's based on each person's interests and what they're wanting to do, and not being fit into a narrow curriculum.
Everyone's interests change over time, and then if they keep on doing that, they will build up this repertoire of their interests in school and having these projects of what they're interested in and learning what they're interested about. And then at the end, they have all this knowledge, more knowledge than what they would have learned at a normal school in the normal environment. And then once they leave school, they know how to build their interests and portray them.
It's almost like that curiosity, isn't it? That you see in young children. They have this incredible curiosity about the world. You see those 4-year-olds going, why, all the time. And something happens when children go into school, and
that doesn't leave, even though people say it does. It's just, I reckon it's just school, the system.
Thank you so much, David, for talking to me about this stuff. It's really useful to hear your thoughts and to start conversations around the sorts of things that you're talking about there. So thank you so much. Now, our aim is to be super interactive throughout this entire event. So to enable that, we have set up a messenger room alongside the summit, where we will be live from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. every day. Find out the details about that by jumping on over to our Facebook page, where you can click on the link and be able to go through to that messenger room. Come join us there. Come and chat to us throughout the day. We are also about the ongoing sustainability of this community. And so we've set up a Facebook community where we can all stay in contact with each other and support each other on our journeys from this point. If this isn't your thing, then you can always pop on over to our Facebook page and give us a like, and then follow us on Instagram. That'll be cool. Thank you. Now we've got a few minutes before our next session starts at 9:30. We have all of our speakers talking about the challenges that they see in the education system. And then they're also talking about what they wish they'd learnt at school. So in the few minutes before that starts, you've got the opportunity to jump on over to our Facebook page, check out those details to join us in that Facebook, in that messenger room, and check out where we are on Instagram as well. So jump on over. We'll see you at 9:30. Thanks very much.